Welcome back to another episode of the Shout Out the Devils podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Amoia. I run Devils Report on Instagram as well as write for the Hockey Writers. I'm here alongside Justin Brady, who runs Devils Fanatics on Instagram. And we are very grateful to be joined by a special guest today, Josh Reinitz, also of the Hockey Writers. He's been covering the Devils for a few years now. Josh, how you doing?
Good, man. Good to be here. Love your show. Glad to be part of it.
Thank you. So, we're going to dive right into it. Obviously, big news out of the Devils world. Dawson Mercer signed that extension that we all figured was going to happen eventually. It was just a matter of when. And it finally, pen to paper, has happened. 3 years, $4 million average annual value, and that leaves the Devils with $976,000 in cap space remaining. So not a lot of wiggle room there if it comes to the deadline. We'll see how it goes. But Josh, what was your immediate first reaction to this?
Well, I think it's a good deal for both sides. Mercer didn't give up any of his UFA years. The Devils will have 1 year control afterwards, so they can go to arbitration if they need to. And jumping off of, I think that year it's $4.2 million. So I think it's 3.7 3.7 the first year, 4.7, then goes down to 4.2 or something like that. But regardless, it's going to be a good number for them to jump off at if they have to go to arbitration. And it's a fair deal for a guy whose production has been up and down.
Yeah, the thing with Dawson Mercer, in my opinion, is that even though last year was a career worst year, he still potted 20 goals, and his ability to stay in the lineup is so crucial. And we know how injuries in the past, especially last season, have affected the Devils. So just being able to stay in the lineup night in and night out is something that I think gets a little overlooked at times. I know it's something that's been talked about, but I still don't think most people have fully grasped the true importance of being able to play a full 82-game season. I mean, just think if, say, Jack Hughes were to stay healthy for a full 82 games, and obviously he's way more talented offensively than Dawson Mercer is, but it's the same premise, what that would do for a team. And we know what Mercer's capable of. We saw 2 years ago, he was absolutely dynamite and a big reason that team set a franchise record and wins. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of year Dawson Mercer has, but I feel like if it went on any longer, it would have started to become a pretty big distraction. So just the fact that it's done. Justin, what did you think?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great deal for both sides, as Josh said. I think 3 years and $4 million a year is perfect. I think for a player of the caliber of Dawson Mercer going forward, he brings a lot to the table. Yes, he's coming off a down year, but he's a two-way player. He's a great front net presence, which this team lacks a lot of. At least in last season, they did a lot. So it's great to have that. He's going to be in the power play, I think, for the most part, if the whole team's able to stay healthy going forward this season. And he's going to be a vital part in that top six all season long. And they're really going to need him to step up in that role. And I think he's going to really do well in that role coming up this season.
Yeah, so there are some injury updates we have as well. Obviously, we're not sure when Mercer's going to end up at camp. I don't think that's been publicly said yet. We would think soon. But there are a few other guys who haven't yet taken the ice. Josh Philman being one of them, upper body week to week. Luke Hughes with his shoulder injury is still going to be out 5 to 7 more weeks. Eric Hall has been sick. He's still labeled day to day. Brett Pesce, Tom Fitzgerald said yesterday in his presser that he's still recovering from the fractured fibula surgery he had, and he's currently labeled week to week. And lastly, Adam Beckman, who I believe the Devils trade Graham Clark for from Minnesota, he's also lower body injury day to day, so it doesn't seem like anything too major there. So that's the injury front. Obviously, the Pesce one I think was a little alarming to people because I don't think anyone really expected him to not be ready for day one of camp. But everything else, I mean, we all knew Luke Hughes already after that video came out with him in the sling. That was a shock and obviously quickly got reported by the Devils. But it could be worse. We know how injuries went for the Devils last season. If they're able to kind of get these guys back, not add too many valuable pieces onto that injured reserve, it's going to be important because preseason will ramp up very quickly. Before you know it, they'll be on the plane to Prague and on their way, and things are getting real. Also, as for the scrimmage, the practice today, they did have a scrimmage. They had some penalty shots in between periods, but in total, between the penalty shots and the in-game goals, the goal scorers, Paul Cotter scored twice, Xavier Perrant scored once, Jesper Bratt scored once, Jack Hughes scored twice, Ryan Schmelzer scored, and Dougie Hamilton scored. So you're seeing a lot of names there get themselves in the mix. Josh, I know you got to swing by practice. Was there anything that really stood out to you?
Cotter was very active. I think he's going to be someone that can really have an impact. There's a lot of upside, especially at the salary that they're paying him. I'm really interested in seeing Mercer when he comes back, if he put on some weight. I know Fitz said at the end of last year he was looking for some of his guys to come back stronger, and I think Mercer was one of those guys. You think about Mercer, when he was in their top penalty kill unit last year. So to do that and be a top 6 winger and do the power play, I think is a lot to ask for a guy who's 21, 22. In terms of the other guys, Kovacevic was very active. And I think the one story coming out of today is Markstrom put up a clean sheet. I mean, his first time really competitive, and I don't think he gave up a goal 5-on-5 or in the shootout. So I think that's something to be happy with. And I really I think these guys are going to get a lot of confidence with knowing that they have somebody of Markstrom's caliber on the back end.
Yeah, and also I want to add, I feel like it improves the players more when they're actually going up against one of the top goaltenders or one of the more consistent goaltenders in the league compared to a guy like Akira Schmidt or Vitek Vanecek. I feel like it can only elevate the players from there on.
I mean, Jack, this is what Jack's
6th year.
That season 6, yeah. I mean, you're talking, it's the first time in his career he's had, the crease really be settled with a good guy moving forward. And that's saying something. And I'm sure it gives him a lot of confidence going forward. It was also nice to see, I think Lazar take some ownership of that fourth line and really look to, him playing in the middle and owning the middle, I think is a big step for him. And Bastian, Bastian hasn't been healthy since the beginning of the 22-23 year. I think he got hurt sometime in the first 10 games when he's hurt his shoulder, and he hasn't been right since then. And so, to have a healthy Bastian, the guy who's 6'4", 220 or whatever, that can skate like he can skate, the amount of pressure they're going to be able to put on people with that fourth line forechecking, I think is going to be a huge upgrade from where they were. And the one thing that I saw at practice that I thought was interesting was the drills that Sheldon Keefe had him doing were largely predicated on forechecking. There was a lot of drills starting in the corner where they were working on how they're going to forecheck, how to force people. And he was working on a drill in the neutral zone where he would send the puck to the wall. One of the other players would carry the puck and then try to dislodge the puck by hitting the guy carrying the puck. And the puck would go to a defenseman. They'd immediately go the other way, 2-on-1. And so I think trying to train the team into separating people from the puck, using their body to be aggressive, and then quick transition, I think would be a huge benefit for this team. I think it fits right into their skill set.
Yeah, I want to add, sorry, Dan, I know you're about to say something. I think it's really important that obviously they want to make physicality a big part of their team coming up this season, but they don't want to sacrifice their transition game and their speed as well. Like we saw that in those first 2 games of the Stanley Cup playoffs back in 2023 against the Rangers. They were trying to be more of a physical team, and that they kind of sacrificed their offensive game. So it's kind of like finding a balance between both sides. And I think the pieces that they add in the offseason is going to make that much more manageable, like adding guys like Paul Cotter, Nason, Kovacevic, Brendan Dillon, like guys like that. So I think it's going to be much more manageable. And I like that Sheldon Keefe is putting these players into these positions to get them mentally prepared for these type of situations.
Yeah, and obviously there is usually stories like this in camp. Chase Stone and Brendan Dillon were mixing it up, pushing and shoving each other, and I think that's a good thing. You want that healthy competition if you were an NHL team in camp. We saw PK Subban and Miles Wood a few years back, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that in my eyes. It's obviously, from what I understand, it was an intense practice. Keefe is making it very clear the standards that he has for this organization, and there's a reason, at least in the regular season, that he's attained so much success in Toronto. So it seems like, from what I've seen so far, Keefe is the right fit. How have you kind of viewed Keefe, Josh?
So I think that there's a misnomer out there that he's this big, players coach, and, he lets his guys just kind of play offensively and lets them go. I mean, I think if you go back to his track record, that's just not what he does. He's very intense. He likes to tinker. So the people who think that you're going to see, 3 lines or 4 lines of 3 guys that never change, got news for you. The Lindy Blender's coming back. I mean, it's just the way he is and what he does. So, but, he's going to have a reason why he's doing it, and it's going to be because he's prepared. I think the lines that you're seeing now are really interesting. Even the D pairs are interesting. But in terms of Keefe, I think you're going to see a guy who's going to preach pressure in all 3 zones. And for the first time really in his career in the NHL, he has the personnel to play the way he wants to play. And he's probably got the best goalie and the best defensive group that he's ever had.
Yeah, you just mentioned those lines. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I've gathered so far.
You're never wrong. When have you ever been wrong? Justin, come on. Have you ever been wrong?
I have not, never.
Except maybe my love for the New York Mets, but anyway, that's a different story. Meyer, Hughes, Bratt, Tatar, Hischier, Mercer, Palat, Holland, Nason, Cotter, Lazar, Bastian would, in theory, be the starting 12 forward group. Then on the back end, Brendan Dillon, Dougie Hamilton, Jonas Siegenthaler, Jonathan Kovacevic, Santeri Hataka, and Simone Nemitz, with obviously Jacob Markstrom and Allen as well. What are your initial thoughts of those lines?
That we're going to have to pry Nichols away from the Hataka pair. He's going to be writing Hataka stories all he's going to make up a Hataka song like Adam Sandler. No, I like, I think starting with the top, I think the Jack, Bratt, Meyer lines are really interesting. Because you got really 3 guys who like to drive play and who really want to have the puck on their stick the whole time. So it'll be interesting to see if they can find some synergy. Jack and Timo played really well. They're probably the 2 best players in the Carolina series 2 years ago together. So, I mean, there's something there. I think that you're going to see a lot of guys rotate around Jack and Nico. I mean, I think you could see Palat and Tatar and and Meyer all play on the left side of Nico just as easily as you can see Bratt and Mercer rotate in on the right side. I wouldn't be surprised to see Nason or Palat get some time with Jack also, depending on the team they're playing. And I can see Mercer getting some 3rd line minutes with, you put Haula, Palat, and Mercer on the same line. I mean, that's as good a defensive 3rd line as you're going to see in the league, and they can score and they can do whatever you got to do. I mean, it's just such a deep team. And Florida did a great job of showing that you can rotate your 4th line. They would put out, it's been too long, but they would put out Lomberg and Lorentz for some games, and they take them off and put in Cousins, and I forget the other guy they put in. But you could do that here, where let's say you want to keep LeBanc, you could always rotate McDermott, LeBanc, Cotter and Bastion, and as aggressive as he wants them to play, those guys are going to get beat up. They need some time. I mean, Lazar, the amount of abuse Lazar took last year and fought through it, if he can get a game off here or there where you could throw one of those other guys in, I mean, it can make a big difference.
Yeah, and I think that the depth they've added plays in so well to that, kind of like you said, because they didn't really have the luxury of doing that last season. And guys like Lazar probably took too much abuse when he didn't really have to if other counterparts were healthy. So it was a little unfortunate circumstance, but if they're able to play their cards right, Sheldon Keefe and the Devils are in a great position right now. And they're going to have to be in that great position quickly in terms of setting the lineup and everything else, because everything's coming up super quick. From when you're listening to this, 8 days or sooner, the Devils will be on the plane to Prague. September 29th is when they leave, meaning that we're going to see a very untraditional preseason. The first 3-ish games, the first 4 games actually, the lineup is likely to look very close to what the opening night lineup will be, because they got to figure out what they got and who's coming on that plane or who's staying. So that starts Sunday the 22nd, home against the Islanders, and then they have one against Montreal, against Washington, and another one on the island against the Islanders. So what are you guys really looking at in these preseason games, and is there really any specific battle you're looking at? Because obviously we established that James Nichols is going to be very happy if Santeri makes the roster. Well, it's looking like a lock with this Luke Hughes injury, unless there's really a dark horse candidate. But just as a whole, the decisions need to be made very quickly. So how do we see the preseason shaping up?
Well, go ahead, Justin.
Okay. For me, I'm looking at Paul Cotter, as Josh just mentioned before. I really have a lot of high hopes for him going into this season. I really think he could slip into that top six at one point this season. Everybody's raving about how good of a hand he had, how good of a playmaker he could be, how physical he could be. He's like a Blake Coleman type of player. That's the vibe I'm getting from him based off what everybody's saying. And that's a player that you're going to want in that middle six all season long. I mean, maybe to start off in the fourth line, that's fine. But if he keeps on proving himself, he should get more minutes as the time goes on. So I'm excited to see him. And also the defensive depth, I'm not really concerned about it. I know they're down Luke Hughes, and that sucks. And possibly Brett Pesce going into this 2-game trip in Prague. But I feel like the first time in a long time, I'm like, all right, no, I'm okay with the Devils' defensive depth. I trust Santeri Hataka. I trust Kovacevic. I trust the guys that they have right now in their 3 pairs on defense right now. So I'm excited to see what they can bring in the preseason and they play well together.
Yeah, I just want to jump in real quick. Back to Paul Cotter. I kind of compared him to the role that Jesper Boquist played 2 years ago with that very successful Devils team. Cotter is similar in terms of point production and great in transition, one of the faster players in the league, but he adds the element of size and hitting, which is an emphasis point for the Devils and something that Boquist didn't do. So you saw how someone like Boquist was already able to be successful in that role, and now you have Cotter, who's essentially a much better version of Boquist for what the Devils need. So I think, like you said, Justin, I think he could really be a great match for what the Devils are looking for. And that's why I don't think if the Devils were to win a Stanley Cup, no one's going to care that they gave up Akira Schmidt and Alexander Holtzman. So, exactly.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is, the battles right now are all around the edges, right? You're not looking, in the past it was, okay, well, who's going to be the starting goaltender and who's going to be our top 6 and who's going to be this? And, you're not saying that. Right now you're looking at, okay, who's our 13th and 14th forwards? And really, who's your 14th forward? And then, is it Nolan Foote or is it LeBanc? And then it's, okay, how are we going to figure out the defense to survive while Luke is gone? And I think, the interesting thing to me is, Siegenthaler and Kovacevic is a really interesting pair. That has a lot of potential, both of them, and I think it's important to both of them to get off to good starts. Dylan and you put Dylan and Hamilton together. I mean, is there a bigger top pair than the two of them together? You have to really think about it. But I mean, Dylan's 6'4", 6'5", Dougie's 6'6". I mean, they're huge, and they complement each other really well. So in terms of battles, I mean, the real battle is, do they want to keep LeBanc? Are they willing to risk Foot getting picked up on waivers? That's really, I think, the one decision, depending on, if people stay healthy. And then the other decision is who's your 7 guys on defense or 8 guys on defense. And I think that comes down to, do you want to keep Saboral? Do you want to keep DeSimone up? And those are kind of like where the real battles are. I don't think Stillman's making the team out of camp. McDermott's going to be on the team. So there's not, I don't see Shane Bowers starting with the team. So I don't know, absent injuries, that the team's not pretty well together, which is good considering how early they start.
Yeah, it's all definitely going to come together quickly, but like I said, really basically a week until they're on that plane to Prague, and everything's going to unfold super, super fast. So, with that being said, obviously, Josh, you're covering the team again this season. What is one thing that, as a member of the media, that you are looking forward to this season, whether it's a storyline, just in general, something that the viewers would want to know that you're looking forward to?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, the big headline is, which team are they? Are they 2 years ago or are they last year, right? That's the overreaching thing. The other thing is, can Markstrom be the guy they wanted to be and finally solve the goal problem that they've had for a decade? And then to me, like, on a smaller scale, I'm really interested to see what happens with Lazar, right? You got a guy who has been in the league for 10 years, is a clear NHL player, is walking into his walk year, has value on a team like this, is a clubhouse guy. Like, can he cement himself as someone that they want to keep for as long as they can for this run? So I think following his season is interesting. And I think, the Dougie Hamilton comeback story is another one that's really interesting. I was surprised when I looked back at how good a year Dougie had 2 years ago. And I think it really got lost. His underlying numbers were ridiculous. He led the league in most pucks on net from the blue line. And that was such a huge problem last year. Even Lindy said at some point that, the big issue with Luke, running the power play is he couldn't get the puck through. There's just too many bodies to get it through, and Dougie somehow finds a way to do that. So I think that makes a huge difference. Really, the power play, right? If they can get themselves in the top 8 in the power play and stay there all year, I mean, that's just going to make the team that much better.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that you didn't say the press box ice cream was your number one story.
No, I've had the ice cream. You need to upgrade the ice cream. Maybe a little caramel or something.
Hopefully they'll get there. But
plus, with Nichols there, you only get one because he's hoarding the others. And Morial's good for sneaking a couple ice creams too. Don't let anybody tell you it's different.
I'm a neutral party here. However the ice cream goes, the ice cream goes.
With this size 40 font on his phone too. So.
In all seriousness, though, things are ramping up so quickly, and that means coverage from all of us. Justin with Devils Fanatics, me with Devils Report and the Hockey Writers, and Josh with the Hockey Writers. All of Josh's links will be below. His tremendous coverage, very, very in-depth stuff that you simply can't get anywhere else. So, Josh obviously works very hard, and I am super, super grateful myself for everything Josh has done, because I would not be in the position I am today without Josh's support, guidance, etc. I've said that to him a million times. He's probably so sick of it.
I mean, you blame me? You trying to blame me for something?
I'm not playing leaves or anything. But seriously, we all at the Hockey Writers work really hard to continue to strive to put out the best content possible, and it's gonna just the season as a whole is gonna be very, very interesting. Um, there's really it's a huge inflection point for the New Jersey Devils this season. That can't be stated enough. So I'll have all the links below. Stay tuned to all of our coverage. Episodes are going to keep coming out. Justin, you got any last comments?
No, but actually, no, I'll say one more thing. Stay tuned for some news. We're going to be dropping some more stuff on Shout Out the Devils. We're going to be starting up a new series every week and a couple other things. So stay tuned for that. Shout Out the Devils is only going to get bigger from here. And it's going to be the best goddamn podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Anything Devils related, this is the place you're going to come to. I promise you it's going to be amazing. Stay tuned for that and more.
If I could just jump in, for somebody my age, for you guys starting out like you are, and to see how much you guys put into it, and just how, trying to get messages out and trying to create a following and trying to get people excited is not easy. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of time behind the scenes, often without a big payoff. So I think you guys both deserve a ton of credit for putting in the time and the effort. You try things, they work. You try other things, they don't work. It's just having the guts to put yourself out there and try it and to do it and to, walk the walk is something you two should be really proud of. And, I wish you both nothing but success in what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Same to you.
Appreciate that. And let's all kill the Devils coverage. To anyone listening, stay tuned. Hopefully, for anyone listening, if you're a Devils fan, for your sake, bigger, greener pastures. I used to say that with Travis Green, but that could still be the case. Greener pastures ahead for the Devils. We shall see. But regardless, through thick or thin, we will continue to have your coverage. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate all the support, and peace out.